Welcome back to Midnight Affair Tales. Thank you for joining us. The rain drummed against the roof as Lincoln Calloway sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The glow of his wife's phone screen reflected off the windshield. He had never been the kind of man to snoop, but tonight something felt off. Tori had left the house an hour ago, claiming she was meeting a friend for dinner. But when Link glanced at her phone, which she had carelessly left behind, a message appeared that sent ice through his veins. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same hotel?" Link's pulse thundered in his ears. His breath came slow and controlled, the way it used to when he was in the field, tracking a target. His instincts, the ones he had buried deep since leaving the CIA, fired back to life like a switch being flipped. He knew what this meant. He knew what he had to do. Instead of confronting her, he started his car and followed her. Charleston at night was quiet, the streets glistening with the remnants of the storm. Link's mind raced. He had given up everything, his career, his old life, his skills, for this marriage. For Tori. For their son Gabriel. Was it all a lie? Tori's car turned into the parking lot of an upscale hotel. Not a restaurant. Not a friend's house. A hotel. Link parked 2 blocks away, blending into the shadows like he used to during covert ops. His heartbeat was steady. His breath controlled. He watched as she walked inside, head down, glancing around nervously. Then a man appeared, tall, well-dressed, confident. He wrapped an arm around her waist like it belonged there. Link's stomach twisted, but his mind remained cold. His wife wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable with it. What else was she lying about? And then a thought struck him like a hammer to the chest. What if this wasn't just an affair? What if it was something worse? Link stayed in the shadows, watching them enter the hotel. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to storm inside, grab Tori by the wrist and drag her out. But that wasn't who he was. He was trained for patience, for strategy. And if his wife was hiding something this big, there was only one way to find out. Link pulled out his phone and opened an old program he hadn't used in years. One that allowed him to hack into nearby security cameras. Within seconds he had access to the hotel's lobby feed. Tori and the man, Vincent Moretti, stood by the reception desk. Link zoomed in, catching the details. Vince handed the clerk a credit card, and a moment later, they were handed a key. Room 915. Link's fingers curled into a fist. He had everything he needed: her lover's name, the room number, the evidence. But as he was about to shut the feed, something stopped him. A security alert. Vince Moretti. Known associate of the Chicago underworld. Fraud. Extortion. Suspected in multiple disappearances. Link's pulse slowed. This wasn't just an affair. This was something far, far worse. Tori wasn't just sleeping with a stranger, she was sleeping with a criminal. And the question burned in Link's mind. What did Vince Moretti want with his wife? Link didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. He sat in his darkened office, listening to the audio feed he had hacked from the hotel room. His stomach churned with every word, every whisper, every secret. Tori's voice, soft and eager. "Did you talk to him?" Vince's voice, smooth, calculated. "He'll be easy to handle. He doesn't even know." Link's fingers tightened around his whiskey glass. "Tori, are you sure? What if he finds out?" "Vince, then we make our move before he does. We take what we need. And we take care of him." Silence. Then Tori laughed. "You really think he's hiding that much money?" "Sweetheart," Vince said, his voice dripping with arrogance, "a man like Lincoln Calloway doesn't just retire. He disappears. And people like that? They always have something to hide." Link's breath came slow and measured. They thought he was sitting on millions from his past. They thought he was weak. And they were planning to get rid of him. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was deadly. Link leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. His wife had betrayed him. His family was in danger. And they thought he was just an ordinary man. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Link's world had shattered, but he didn't have the luxury of anger. Anger was reckless. Anger made men sloppy. And Lincoln Calloway was never sloppy. He spent the night strategizing. He listened to the recording of Tori and Vince's conversation over and over again, dissecting every word, every pause, every implication. They thought he had hidden money. They thought they could take him out. They had no idea who they were dealing with. By the time the sun began to rise, Link had a plan. He moved through the house in silence, careful not to wake Gabriel. He checked the locks, the security system, the cameras he had installed weeks ago when his instincts had first started whispering that something was off. At exactly 7:30 a.m., Tori walked into the kitchen, acting like everything was normal. She kissed him on the cheek like she always did, but Link didn't react. He simply watched her. Her betrayal was etched into her movements. The fake smile. The way she glanced at her phone when she thought he wasn't looking. The way she lingered just a second too long before heading to the bathroom. She had no idea he knew. And that meant he had the advantage. Gabriel's sleepy voice broke the silence. "Daddy, can we go to the park today?" Link crouched down, brushing a hand through his son's messy hair. "Not today, bud. We're gonna have a special day, just me and you, okay?" Because today Link had work to do. Before we dive deeper into this story, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how many of you are with me on this journey. And if you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because trust me, things are about to get insane. Now back to the story. Link had spent the last hour digging into Vince Moretti's background. The man had a long history of fraud, blackmail, and extortion. He was dangerous, reckless, and ruthless. And most importantly, he was after Link's son. A text popped up on Tori's phone while she was in the shower. "Vince, everything's set. We grabbed the kid today." The words felt like a knife slicing into Link's chest. They were going to kidnap Gabriel. Link's heartbeat remained steady, but inside, a storm was brewing. He grabbed a duffel bag and packed essentials: cash, burner phones, weapons. Within minutes, he had wiped every trace of himself from their home. By the time Tori stepped out of the bathroom, Link and Gabriel were gone. Link's SUV sped down the highway, Gabriel in the back seat, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "Where are we going, Daddy?" Link glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "Somewhere safe, buddy." The second they left the city limits, Link pulled over at a gas station and swapped out the SUV for a different vehicle, one of his many hidden assets. His past life had taught him one thing: always be prepared. Tori had probably realized by now that they were gone. She was likely calling Vince, panicking, trying to figure out what had happened. Let her. By the time she understood what was really happening, Link would be 3 steps ahead. The rules had changed. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was war. The road stretched endlessly before them, the hum of the tires filling the silence. Link kept glancing at the rearview mirror, checking for signs of being followed. His mind was calculating, planning, anticipating. Gabriel, sitting in the back seat, was quiet. Too quiet. The little boy who usually hummed his favorite songs or asked a million questions was staring out the window, his small fingers gripping the stuffed dinosaur tighter than usual. Link took a deep breath. He had spent his life dealing with threats, disarming bombs, taking down terrorists. But nothing in his training had prepared him for the pain of seeing his own son afraid. "Hey buddy," he said, his voice softer now. "You hungry?" Gabriel nodded hesitantly. Link pulled into a small diner on the outskirts of town. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions, just a handful of truckers and a waitress who looked like she had seen it all. They slid into a booth. Link positioned himself so he could see the entrance, his back to the wall, old habits kicking in. Gabriel played with his food more than he ate. Link watched him carefully. "You okay?" he asked. Gabriel hesitated before asking in a small voice, "Is Mommy coming?" Link's grip on his coffee tightened. How was he supposed to explain this to a 6-year-old? How could he tell him that the woman who tucked him in at night had betrayed them both? "Not right now, bud." He forced a smile. "It's just me and you for a little while, okay?" Gabriel nodded, but Link saw the confusion in his eyes. Then something caught his attention. A man at the counter watching them too closely. Link's instincts flared. He didn't know if Vince had people looking for him yet, but it was too risky to stay. "Come on, bud. Let's go." He threw cash on the table and scooped Gabriel into his arms, moving swiftly toward the exit. The man at the counter stood up. Link could feel the tension in the air. Without hesitation, he turned sharply toward the restroom, slipping through the kitchen door instead. A back exit. A different car. Gone before they could be traced. This was just the beginning. Nightfall found them in a secluded motel, the kind where the sheets smelled of bleach and the walls were too thin. But it was safe. Link sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his laptop screen. Vince Moretti's name was pulled up in multiple government databases. This wasn't just a conman. He had ties to the Chicago Mafia, illegal trafficking and murder investigations. The kind of man who didn't just steal money. He destroyed lives. And now he was after Link's. A phone buzzed. Not his. Tori's old phone. The one she had forgotten at home. Vince Moretti, where the hell are you? He took the kid. This wasn't the plan. Fix it. Link exhaled through his nose. So Vince was panicking. Good. He typed a message back. Link, meet me. Just you. No one else. A long pause. Then 3 dots flickered on the screen. Vince, where? Link smirked. The fool had no idea what he was walking into. Link, Blue Ridge Mountains. Cabin on Route 42. You have 1 hour. Vince was expecting an easy target. He was about to learn exactly who he had crossed. The wind howled through the trees as Link stood in the darkness outside the old cabin. His Glock was loaded. His knife was strapped to his ankle. His pulse was steady. Footsteps crunched on the gravel. Link watched as Vince Moretti stepped out of a sleek black car, adjusting his suit like he wasn't meeting a man who could kill him with his bare hands. You got balls, I'll give you that, Vince said, smirking as he approached. Where's my kid? Link clenched his jaw. His kid. The arrogance was nauseating. You made a mistake, Vince. Vince scoffed. No, Calloway. You did. You think you can just disappear? You think you can keep your son away from his mother? Link didn't flinch. Tori chose her side. And you chose yours. Vince's smirk widened. Yeah. And what are you gonna do about it? Link didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside, revealing the blinking red light of the sniper scope trained on Vince's head. Vince stiffened. His eyes darted around. You son of a... Let's make one thing clear, Link said coldly. You think you're in control, but you're not. You think you're the predator, but you're the prey. And I promise you, Vince, this will not end well for you. Vince swallowed hard. For the first time, his confidence wavered. You don't scare me, he said, but there was less conviction in his voice. Link leaned in close. You should be scared. Silence stretched between them, heavy and dangerous. Then Vince took a step back. This isn't over, Calloway. Link let him walk away. For now. Because the game had just begun. The moment Vince's car disappeared down the winding road, Link stood in the cold mountain air, exhaling slowly. His pulse was steady, but his mind was a storm. Vince Moretti was dangerous. He wasn't just some sleazy conman. He had connections, men, and money. But he wasn't the real problem. Tori was. She wasn't some clueless woman who got seduced by a criminal. She had helped plan this. She had chosen betrayal. And now she was going to face the consequences. Link climbed into his truck and drove back toward the motel where Gabriel was sleeping. He parked across the street, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger before stepping inside. The little boy was curled up on the bed, his stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm. He looked peaceful. Innocent. Link knew he had to protect that innocence at all costs. But first he had to deal with his wife. He pulled out a burner phone and dialed Tori's number. She answered on the first ring. She had been waiting. Link? Where is my son? Her voice was sharp, frantic, but not the voice of a grieving mother. It was the voice of a woman whose plan had backfired. Safe, Link said flatly. Which is more than I can say for you. Silence. Then a slow inhale. You don't understand, Link. Vince is dangerous. And you still chose him. I didn't have a choice, she snapped. You don't know what it's like being married to a ghost. You disappear for hours, days, sometimes weeks. You don't talk to me, you don't let me in. You act like I'm some liability, some stranger. Link's jaw clenched. So what? That justifies selling me out? Handing our son over to a criminal? I never wanted Gabriel hurt. Then why did you agree to it? The silence on the other end was all the answer he needed. Meet me, he said, voice cold. One last time. Just you and me. Where? She whispered. Home. Link sat in the darkened living room, the house feeling foreign now. The place where he had once built a life, shared laughter with his wife, read bedtime stories to his son, now just a battleground of betrayal. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. He didn't expect her to show. But she did. The front door creaked open and Tori stepped inside, her face pale, her hands shaking. For a brief second, she looked like the woman he had once loved. The woman he had left the CIA for. The woman he had sworn to protect. But Link knew better now. "Where is Gabriel?" she demanded. "He's safe." She exhaled, her shoulders dropping. "Like, I messed up." He tilted his head. "You planned to have me killed." "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered, stepping closer. "Vince made me think, he made me believe you were hiding money, that you had some secret fortune from your CIA days. I thought if I could get my hands on it, I could finally be free." Link's fingers curled into fists. "Free from what, Tori? A husband who loved you? A family that cared for you? Free from feeling like I didn't exist," she snapped. Link let out a low laugh, but there was no humor in it. "And now? What do you feel now?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Regret." "Too late." Link stood, towering over her. "I'm going to give you a choice, Tori." Her breath hitched. "You walk away now, and you never come near me or Gabriel again." His voice was even, controlled. "Or you stay and you deal with what happens next." Tori's lip quivered. She wasn't stupid. She knew what he meant. For a moment he thought she would fight. But then she took a shaky step backward. "I'm sorry, Link. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough." But it didn't matter anymore. She was gone. And now he could focus on ending this once and for all. Link spent the next few hours preparing. The war wasn't over. Vince wouldn't just let this go. He was too arrogant, too sure of himself. He would come back thinking he could fix the mess. And Link would be waiting. He packed weapons, changed license plates, wiped down surfaces. He called in old favors, reactivated old accounts. The man he had buried, the CIA agent, the hunter, was fully awake now. Then he made the call. Vince answered on the second ring. "Calloway. You got guts calling me?" "Let's finish this, Vince." "You serious?" Vince laughed. "I thought you'd be running by now." "Come find out." A long pause. Then Vince's voice dropped. "You sure you want this fight?" Link smirked. "I was built for this fight." The trap was set. And when the time came, Vince Moretti would never see it coming. The night air was heavy with tension. Link sat in the darkness of the old house, gun in hand, watching the road through the scope of his rifle. He had spent the last few hours setting traps, covering exits, positioning himself in the perfect vantage point. The house, his former home, was now a battlefield. Vince Moretti was coming. Not alone. Link knew men like Vince. They didn't fight fair. They didn't come for a clean showdown. They came to bury problems. But Vince had underestimated his target. Because Lincoln Calloway was not a man to be buried. A pair of headlights cut through the darkness. Link's jaw tightened. They were here. The SUV came to a slow halt. The engine cut off. Then movement, 4 men stepped out, dressed in black, carrying guns. Vince was the last one out. He adjusted his coat, smirked up at the house. "Calloway," his voice rang through the night. "You know, most men would have skipped town by now. But I gotta respect it. You got balls." Link didn't respond. He adjusted his rifle, finger resting lightly on the trigger. One of Vince's men stepped forward, scanning the area. "You think he's even still here?" Link let out a slow breath. Time to make his move. He fired. The bullet ripped through the silence, striking the man in the leg. He collapsed with a scream. Panic erupted. Vince's men ducked, scrambling for cover. Link used the chaos. He slipped from his position, moving like a shadow through the house. He knew every inch of this place. They didn't. A second man entered through the front door. Link was already waiting. He grabbed the man's gun, twisted it out of his grip, and delivered a sharp elbow to his throat. The man gagged, eyes wide, before Link slammed his head against the wall. 2 down. Vince's voice rang through the house. "I'll give you one chance, Calloway. Walk out now and I'll make it quick." Link smirked. He wasn't walking out of anything. He was ending this. Link moved through the house, his steps silent. 2 men were down. 2 remained. And Vince. He listened. Footsteps on the back porch. One of Vince's men was trying to flank him. Smart. But not smart enough. Link waited. As soon as the door creaked open, he struck. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it so hard the bones cracked. The gun clattered to the floor. The man screamed, but Link didn't give him a chance to react. He drove a knee into his ribs, sending him sprawling. 3 down. That left one. And Vince. Link retrieved the fallen gun and moved toward the hallway. Then, movement. Too late. A fist slammed into the side of his head, sending him stumbling. The last man had been waiting. Link recovered quickly, blocking the next hit. But this guy was bigger. Stronger. Link dodged a second punch, then drove his elbow into the man's stomach. The guy grunted but didn't go down. Link needed to finish this fast. He feinted left, then struck. A brutal hit to the throat. The man gasped, staggering. Link followed up with a knee to the jaw, sending him crashing into the coffee table. 4 down. Now it was just him and Vince. Link turned, just in time to see Vince standing in the doorway. A gun pointed straight at his chest. "You know," Vince said, smirking, "I really thought you were just some washed-up government stiff. But damn, Calloway. You got skills." Link didn't move. He watched Vince carefully, noting the slight shake in his hand. Vince was nervous. "Too bad it won't save you," Vince added, stepping closer. "You sure about that?" Link asked. Then, the distraction. A shadow moved behind Vince. Tori. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "Vince," she said quietly. Vince turned slightly. Just enough. Link lunged. He knocked the gun aside, twisting Vince's wrist. The weapon fired, the bullet shattering a lamp. Then Link drove his fist into Vince's jaw. Vince stumbled back, blood dripping from his lip. "This wasn't how it was supposed to go," Vince muttered. Link grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "You tried to take my son." Vince sneered. "So what? You think you're some hero? You think you're better than me?" Link's voice was ice. "I know I am." Then he finished it. A final brutal strike. Vince crumpled to the floor. It was over. But there was still one more loose end. Link turned to Tori. Her eyes were wide, tears streaming down her face. "Link," she whispered, "please?" But he had nothing left to say to her. She had made her choice. And now she would live with it. Without a word, Link walked away. Link sat in the driver's seat of his truck, watching the horizon turn gold with sunrise. It was over. Vince was gone. His men were gone. And Tori? She had lost everything. Link had made sure of that. He had sent copies of their conversations, her betrayal, her plans, to every major news outlet, every social media platform. Her name was destroyed. No more fake smiles. No more playing the victim. The world knew who she really was. Gabriel stirred in the back seat, rubbing his eyes. "Daddy?" Link turned, his expression softening. "Yeah, but are we going home?" Link looked out at the road ahead. Home. He wasn't sure they had one anymore. "No, buddy," he said finally. "We're going somewhere better." And with that, he drove forward, leaving behind the wreckage of his old life. For good. The morning sun painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson as Link drove down the open highway. The weight of the past few days hung on his shoulders, heavier than any mission he had ever carried out in his CIA days. Gabriel sat in the back seat, watching the world pass by through the window, his small hands still clutching the stuffed dinosaur he had refused to let go of since they left home. Link exhaled slowly. Oh. That word didn't mean what it used to. There was no going back. No fixing what had been broken. Vince was gone. Tori was ruined. And the only thing that mattered now was keeping his son safe. "Daddy?" Gabriel's voice was soft, uncertain. Link glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "Yeah, buddy? Are we ever gonna see Mommy again?" Link tightened his grip on the steering wheel. How was he supposed to explain to a 6-year-old that his mother had betrayed them both? That she had chosen greed over love? That she had almost handed him over to a monster? He took a slow breath. "Not for a long time, bud," he finally said. "But you and me? We're gonna be okay." Gabriel nodded, his small face filled with a quiet understanding that no child should have to carry. Link turned his eyes back to the road. No more lies. No more betrayals. From this moment on, it was just the two of them. Link knew that erasing a life took precision. You couldn't just disappear. You had to burn every connection, wipe every trace, become a ghost. And that's exactly what he was about to do. They had stopped at a rundown motel on the outskirts of a small town in Tennessee. It wasn't much, but it was quiet. Safe. While Gabriel slept on the motel bed, Link sat at the small wooden desk, working in the dim glow of a single lamp. His laptop screen displayed multiple government databases, old contacts, backdoor systems he hadn't touched in years. He had once been a master of making people disappear. Now he had to use those skills on himself. One by one he deleted everything. His old bank accounts? Closed. His social security number? Erased. His driver's license? Expired and burned. Within the next 24 hours, Lincoln Calloway would cease to exist. He shut the laptop and leaned back, rubbing his temples. This was the right move. Vince's men would come looking for him. The FBI might get curious. Even the CIA wouldn't be happy about a former agent causing this much noise. But Link wasn't running. He was ensuring no one could ever use his past against him again. He glanced over at Gabriel, who was curled up under the blanket, breathing softly. "Daddy?" The small voice cut through the quiet. "Yeah, buddy? Are we really safe now?" Link swallowed hard. Were they? Almost, he promised. Just a little longer. Because there was still one last thing he had to do. Tori sat alone in the dimly lit apartment, staring at the shattered remains of her life. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Calls from reporters. Calls from old friends, most of whom weren't friends anymore. The world knew. Link had made sure of that. The photos. The messages. The recordings of her and Vince plotting. It was all over the internet. Her betrayal was public knowledge now. She had lost everything. The charity organizations she worked for had cut ties. Her reputation was ruined. Even the people she once manipulated had abandoned her. She pressed her hands to her face, breathing unevenly. She had convinced herself she was doing the right thing. That she had been forced into this. That she was the victim. But now, sitting in the wreckage of her choices, she finally faced the truth. She had done this to herself. And worst of all, she had lost Gabriel. A knock at the door made her flinch. She didn't move. Then another knock. Louder. Her stomach twisted. She hesitated, then slowly got up and peeked through the peephole. Her breath caught. A man stood outside. Tall. Broad shoulders. A suit that was too clean, too professional for an ordinary visitor. And his eyes? Cold. Calculating. Unforgiving. Tori's hands trembled as she unlocked the door. The man stepped inside, shutting it behind him. "Mrs. Calloway," he said smoothly, his voice carrying the weight of something final. Who are you?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I work for some people who have a very big interest in your ex-husband." Tori's pulse spiked. "Link," she whispered. "What do you want with him?" The man took a slow step closer. "We don't want him, Mrs. Calloway." His smile widened. "We want you." Tori's knees nearly gave out. She had thought losing her reputation was the worst thing that could happen to her. She had been wrong. Because now, she was a pawn in a game she didn't understand. And there was no one left to save her. The air in the motel room felt heavy. Link sat at the small desk, staring at the last remaining traces of his past life on the laptop screen. Gabriel was asleep, his small chest rising and falling steadily under the motel blanket. He had no idea how much danger they were still in. Link clicked a few keys. With one final command, his last digital footprint vanished. No more records. No more traces. No more Lincoln Calloway. He shut the laptop, letting out a slow breath. It was done. Now, there was only one thing left to handle, whoever was looking for him. Because Tori's betrayal had opened doors he had kept locked for years. And he had no doubt that someone out there was trying to dig into his past. Link checked his burner phone. A message flashed on the screen. "Unknown number, we need to talk. You're not as invisible as you think." Link's jaw tightened. Whoever this was, they weren't just after him. They were already watching. His grip on the phone tightened. There was only one way to deal with ghosts from the past. You hunt them before they hunt you. Link grabbed his duffel bag, checked his gun, and left Gabriel sleeping. He wasn't going far, just far enough to remind whoever was watching that he was not a man to be followed. Before we get deeper into this, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how many of you are here following every second of this story. And if you're loving this so far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's about to happen next. Link thought he had erased himself from existence. But some enemies don't just disappear. Now back to the story. Link pulled into an empty parking lot outside an abandoned gas station, his headlights cutting through the darkness. The location was chosen on purpose. No cameras, no witnesses, just silence. He stepped out of the car, gun tucked into his waistband, and waited. Minutes later, another car pulled up. The man who stepped out was dressed in a sharp black suit, his expression calm, unreadable. Link knew that look. Government. Intelligence. Someone who knew things they weren't supposed to know. The man stopped a few feet away. "You're a hard man to find, Calloway?" Link said nothing. He just watched, waiting. The man smirked. "Relax. I'm not here to kill you. If I was, you'd already be dead." Link's jaw clenched. "Then what do you want?" The man studied him for a moment before speaking. "Your ex-wife made a mistake. She thought she was just betraying you. But she put something bigger in motion. Now there are people looking for you, people who don't care if you're retired. And if they find you, they won't stop at you." Link's fingers twitched. "Gabriel. Who are they?" Link asked. The man's smirk faded. "People from your past. People you pissed off when you worked for the agency. They want revenge. And now, thanks to your wife's little scandal, they know where to find you." Link took a slow breath. He had been careful. He had burned his past. But some fires never fully die. "So," Link said, voice low, "what are you telling me?" The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm telling you that running won't work anymore. You have two choices: disappear for good, or end this once and for all." The words hung in the cold night air. Link already knew his answer. Because he was done running. Link drove back to the motel in silence. The weight of the conversation sat heavy in his chest. Whoever was after him, they weren't just coming for revenge. They were coming to erase him. And that meant Gabriel was in danger. He pulled into the parking lot, checking his surroundings before stepping inside. The motel room was dark, except for the faint glow of the bathroom light. Gabriel was still asleep. Link sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair. He had spent his entire life cleaning up other people's messes. Now he had to clean up his own. But first he had to ensure his son's safety. He reached for his phone, dialing a number he hadn't called in years. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "Didn't think I'd ever hear from you again, Calloway?" Link exhaled. "I need a favor." A short chuckle. "I figured. What do you need?" Link looked at Gabriel, his sleeping face peaceful, unaware of the storm brewing around him. "I need you to make sure my son is untouchable. New identity. New life. I need him safe." Pause. "Then, you sure about this? Once I do this, you can't ever see him again." Link's throat tightened. "I know." The voice on the other end sighed. "I'll make the calls. You got 48 hours before I wipe him clean. After that, he's gone." Link nodded, even though no one could see him. "Thank you." He hung up. His son would be safe. But that meant Link had one last mission. Because before he disappeared forever, he had to make sure the people hunting him would never get the chance to look again. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Link was already moving. His decision had been made. Gabriel would get a fresh start. A new life. A future without looking over his shoulder. But before Link could vanish, he had one last mess to clean up. And that mess had a name: Vincent Moretti. He had let Vince walk away once. He should have ended him back at the cabin. But now Vince was desperate, reckless, and running out of places to hide. And desperate men? They made mistakes. Link pulled up a secure database, tracing Vince's movements through known associates, burner phones, and credit card pings. It didn't take long. Vince had gone to the FBI. Link's fingers stilled over the keyboard. The fool was trying to make a deal. Vince thought he could sell Link out in exchange for immunity. That was Vince's final mistake. Link closed the laptop, grabbed his duffel bag, and left the motel without a sound. Tonight, Vince Moretti was going to disappear. The FBI Safehouse was a small, nondescript building on the outskirts of town, a place where informants were kept before they testified. Link knew the routine. He had built places like this before. He crouched behind a row of trees, his Glock strapped to his side. One guard at the front door. One inside. Vince would be in the back room. Too easy. Link moved like a shadow. Silent. Precise. Lethal. The first guard never saw it coming. A swift chokehold, a sharp twist, and he was unconscious before he hit the ground. The second guard had time to blink before Link struck. A single blow to the throat, then a knee to the ribs. He wouldn't be getting up anytime soon. Link stepped inside. Vince was sitting on a couch, talking into a recorder, spilling everything he thought he knew. "Calloway isn't who you think he is," Vince was saying. "He worked for the government, yeah, but there's more. This guy, he's dangerous. If you want dirt, I got dirt. But I want full protection. Link smirked. Not tonight, Vince. Vince turned just as Link stepped into the room. His eyes widened in terror. Holy! Link grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the wall. You really thought this was gonna work? Link growled. Vince struggled, but Link tightened his grip. I can make you disappear, Vince. Permanently. Vince's face paled. For the first time he looked truly afraid. Link, listen. No. You listen, Link cut him off. You're done. You don't talk about me. You don't whisper my name. You don't breathe in my direction. You disappear or I make you disappear. Understand? Vince's head bobbed quickly. He understood. Link shoved him to the ground. If I ever see you again, Link said calmly, I won't be this generous. He turned and walked out. By the time Vince got up, Link was already gone. And so was any chance he had of redemption. The sun had finally risen by the time Link returned to the motel. Gabriel was awake, sitting on the bed, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Morning, Daddy. Link forced a smile. Morning, bud. Gabriel tilted his head. Are we leaving? Link's throat tightened. He had spent his entire life protecting people. But nothing, no mission, no training, had prepared him for this moment. He kneeled beside Gabriel, brushing a hand over his son's messy hair. Yeah, buddy. We're going somewhere new. Gabriel frowned. But what about you? Link swallowed hard. I'll always be with you, buddy. Always. Gabriel's lip trembled. He didn't fully understand, but he felt it. Link had made sure everything was in place. The new identity, the new home, the new life. Gabriel would be safe. He would never have to live in the shadows, never have to wonder who was coming after him. Link had given him freedom. Even if it meant losing him forever. The car pulled up outside the motel. A woman stepped out, Link's contact. The one who would take Gabriel to safety. Gabriel clung to Link's shirt. I don't want to go without you. Link almost broke. But he had to do this. He pulled his son into a tight hug. You're gonna be okay, bud. I promise. And one day, you'll understand why. Gabriel sniffled, but he nodded. Link watched as the woman led his son to the car. The door closed. The engine started. And just like that, Gabriel Calloway was gone. Link stood there, staring after the car until it disappeared down the road. His son was safe. And now he had nothing left to lose. It was time for one final mission. One last job. And when it was done, Lincoln Calloway would disappear forever. The road stretched before him, endless and empty. Link gripped the steering wheel, his mind sharper than it had been in years. For the first time since this war began, he had nothing left to protect. Only something to finish. Gabriel was safe. His son would grow up in a world where he didn't have to look over his shoulder. But Link? He wasn't done yet. There was still one last loose end. The man who had come looking for him. The man who had warned him that his past had resurfaced. Dmitry Kirov. Link had crossed Kirov years ago in an operation that should have been Kirov's last. The Russian arms dealer had barely survived the ambush Link had led against him. But now, he was back. And he wanted revenge. Link pulled into an abandoned warehouse district just outside the city, the kind of place where people disappeared without a trace. He parked his car in the shadows, scanning the area. He wasn't here to negotiate. He wasn't here to reason. He was here to end this. Link climbed out, checking the gun at his hip, the knife strapped to his ankle. He moved toward the entrance, footsteps silent against the gravel. Then he heard it. Voices. Oh, foreign. Armed men. They were waiting for him. Link smirked. Good. He stepped inside. The warehouse was dimly lit, crates stacked high, dust settling in the air. In the center stood Kirov, tall, broad, a scar running down the side of his face. The Russian turned, smiling coldly. Calloway. His voice was smooth, accented. Dangerous. Link didn't blink. Kirov. I heard you've been making a mess. Kirov gestured to the room. And now you come alone? Link's smirk didn't falter. Who said I came alone? Before Kirov could react, a bullet tore through the air, striking the light above him. Glass shattered. Sparks flew. The room plunged into darkness. Link moved. Fast. A knife flashed in the dim light. A sharp cry rang out. One down. A gunshot cracked through the warehouse, missing Link by inches. He slid behind a crate, heart steady, breath controlled. Two more men moved toward him. Link sprang forward, elbow to the throat, knee to the ribs. The first man dropped. The second lunged. Link sidestepped, grabbed his wrist and snapped it clean. 3 down. Then silence. Just him and Kirov. Link straightened, rolling his shoulders. You really thought you could take me out, Kirov? Kirov exhaled, shaking his head. I didn't come to kill you, Calloway. Link narrowed his eyes. Then why are you here? Kirov smiled slowly. I came to make you an offer. Link kept his gun trained on Kirov. The Russian was smiling, but Link knew better. This wasn't a man who gave up easily. An offer. Link repeated, voice cold. Kirov nodded, stepping closer. I know you, Calloway. You don't belong in the shadows. You don't belong in a quiet life with a picket fence. Link didn't flinch. Kirov smirked. You belong in the hunt. You don't know a damn thing about me. Don't I? Kirov's gaze darkened. You erased yourself. Gave up everything. But look at you now, back in the fight. Because men like us? We don't get to retire. We don't get peace. Link's grip on the gun tightened. He hated that Kirov wasn't wrong. What do you want? Link asked flatly. Kirov's smirk widened. Work with me. One last job. And then you disappear, for good. Link exhaled slowly. Why the hell would I ever work for you? Kirov chuckled. Because I know something you don't. Link narrowed his eyes. Your wife. She didn't just betray you. Link's blood ran cold. She sold information, Calloway. And not just about you, about every mission you ever touched. Link's jaw clenched. If that was true, people he worked with, people who trusted him, were now in danger. Kirov tilted his head. So, what's it going to be? Link inhaled deeply. He had been ready to disappear. But this wasn't over yet. Link didn't trust Kirov. Not for a damn second. But if what Kirov said was true, if Tori had sold classified intel, then there were more lives at stake than just his own. And Link wasn't the kind of man to walk away from unfinished business. He took the deal. One last job. One last mission. Then he was gone for good. Kirov handed him a file. Link flipped it open. Coordinates. Targets. A hit list. He wasn't here to kill. He was here to clean up the mess his wife had made. To protect the people she had put in danger. Link spent the next 48 hours preparing. Gathering weapons. Studying movements. Planning his strike. Then he went hunting. The mission took him across the country. One by one he eliminated the threats. He took down the men who had bought the stolen information. He wiped out the network Tori had helped build. And finally he found the last name on the list. Tori Calloway. She was the final loose end. And Link? He had one last move to make. The wind howled through the city streets as Link stood outside the apartment building, staring up at the dimly lit window on the 3rd floor. Tori was inside. She had spent the last few weeks running, hiding, trying to fix the mess she had made. But Link knew the truth, there was no fixing this. She hadn't just betrayed him. She had sold secrets that had gotten good men killed. And now she was the last name on his list. Link exhaled slowly, his grip tightening around the gun at his side. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to finish it. He moved through the shadows, slipping into the building undetected. The place was old, the security weak, a single lock and a cheap deadbolt. Too easy. Within seconds he was inside. The apartment was dark, silent except for the distant hum of traffic. Then movement. Link turned. Tori stood in the doorway, eyes wide, a gun trembling in her hands. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then she whispered, I knew you'd come. Link stepped forward, his voice cold. Then you know why I'm here. Her hands shook, but she kept the gun raised. I didn't have a choice, Link. They came for me. They threatened me. What was I supposed to do? Link's jaw clenched. You were supposed to tell me. She swallowed hard. I thought I could fix it. I thought. You thought wrong. Tears welled in her eyes. You're really going to kill me, aren't you? Link stared at her. The woman he had once loved. The mother of his son. The one who had destroyed everything. Then he said something that made her freeze. No. I don't have to. Tori's breath hitched. What do you mean? Link holstered his gun. I don't need to pull the trigger. You already did that yourself. Confusion flickered in her eyes. Link. It's over, Tori. His voice was quiet, final. Every agency, every criminal you worked with, they all know what you did. The men you sold intel to? They're dead. The ones who are left. They're looking for someone to blame. Tori's face paled. You think I ruined your life? Link took a slow step forward. You haven't even seen the beginning of what's coming for you. Tori's hands trembled. You're lying. Link shook his head. You'll be running for the rest of your life. He leaned in close. And this time? No one is coming to save you. She let out a shaky breath. Link, please. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything. He stepped back, turning toward the door. You did it to yourself. Tori staggered forward. Wait. But Link didn't stop. He walked out of the apartment, leaving her exactly where she deserved to be, alone, afraid, and knowing that no matter where she ran, karma was right behind her. For the first time in his life he felt nothing. No anger. No regret. Just peace. It was over. Link sat at the edge of a cliffside, watching the sun rise over the ocean. The waves crashed against the rocks below, the wind whipping through his hair. For the first time in years he wasn't looking over his shoulder. No more threats. No more enemies. Tori was finished. Vince was gone. Gabriel was safe. Link pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lighting it with a steady hand. He had never been a smoker, but today felt like a moment worth marking. His phone buzzed. A single text from his contact. It's done. Gabriel is safe. No one will ever find him. Link exhaled, watching the smoke curl into the sky. His son had a future now. A real one. And Link? He had one last move to make. He pulled a second phone from his pocket, the last link to his old life. One press of a button and everything would be wiped. No more records. No more traces. The world would never know he existed. Link took one last drag of the cigarette, then flicked it into the wind. He pressed the button. The screen flashed. Then, nothing. It was done. Lincoln Calloway was officially gone. And as he walked away from the cliff, disappearing into the rising sun, he smiled. Because for the first time in a long, long time, he was free. Link walked through the crowded streets of a small town in Mexico, his face hidden beneath a worn baseball cap, sunglasses covering his eyes. He had crossed the border 2 days ago, slipping through undetected using the last of his old CIA contacts. This was supposed to be it. The final step. But there was still one last piece of unfinished business. He entered a quiet cafe, choosing a seat near the back, facing the door. It was the same strategy he had used his entire life. Never let your back be exposed. The waitress approached. Café solo, he said smoothly. Black coffee. No distractions. He checked his burner phone. One last message. A name. A location. The last man left on the list. Link had spent weeks taking down everyone who had been involved in Tori's betrayal. The buyers, the brokers, the men who had paid for classified information. One remained. A high-ranking government official who had secretly funded the operation. A man who had sat behind a desk, making deals that had gotten innocent people killed. Link tapped his fingers against the table. The world thought he was dead. Gabriel was safe. But this wasn't about survival anymore. This was about justice. The kind that no courtroom could deliver. His coffee arrived. He sipped it slowly, staring at the name on the screen. Then he stood. One last job. After that, he would finally be able to disappear for good. Link arrived in Washington, D.C. under a false name, moving through the city like a ghost. The same city he had once served, the same government he had bled for. But there was no loyalty left. Not after what he had learned. He sat inside a car parked across from an upscale townhouse. The man inside, Michael Harrington, former State Department official, was eating dinner with his wife and 2 kids. A family man. A respected politician. But Link knew the truth. Harrington had taken bribes. Sold classified intelligence. Funded operations that had led to deaths. And when Tori had betrayed Link, Harrington had been the one who paid for it all. Link pulled out his silencer, screwing it onto his weapon with slow precision. This was different from the others. The people he had taken down before had been criminals, mercenaries, killers. Harrington? He was worse. Because he wore a suit and smiled for the cameras. Because the world called him a leader. Link exhaled, steadying his hand. One shot. One bullet. It would all be over. But then, his phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. Walk away. Link's stomach clenched. Who the hell was this? A second message appeared. We know who you are. We know where you are. Walk away or Gabriel won't stay safe for long. Link's pulse spiked. He had made sure Gabriel was untouchable. He had erased him from every database, burned every connection. But someone had found him. Someone had access to things no one should have access to. His hand tightened around the gun. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was personal. And whoever had just threatened his son, they had made the last mistake of their lives. Link was already on the move. The second that message hit his phone, he left Washington behind. He didn't have time for revenge anymore. Not when Gabriel's safety was back on the line. He flew across the country using a different identity, switching burner phones, ensuring no one could track him. Every move was calculated, methodical. The way he had been trained. By the time he landed in Texas, he had already pinpointed the source of the message. It wasn't from any government agency. It wasn't from any criminal network. It was from someone inside the CIA. Someone who knew exactly who he was. And they wanted something. Link sat in a dark motel room, his hands steady as he loaded his weapon. There was only one thing left to do. He had spent years cleaning up messes, erasing the past, eliminating threats. But now, the past had come for him. And this time he wasn't running. Link sat in the dark motel room, staring at the message on his burner phone. The glow of the screen was the only light in the room, but it felt like a fire burning straight through his chest. Walk away. We know who you are. We know where your son is. They had made a mistake. They thought they could threaten his son and get away with it. They thought he would back down. They didn't understand that Lincoln Calloway didn't scare easily. He pulled out his laptop, fingers moving across the keyboard with precision. He had erased himself from the system, but now? He was going to do the opposite. He was going to dig. He hacked into old databases, backdoors that should have been locked down, systems even the CIA thought were untraceable. And within minutes he found what he was looking for. The message had come from Langley. Not from a rogue agent. Not from some forgotten enemy. This came from inside the CIA itself. Link exhaled slowly. The agency wanted him gone. They had tolerated his existence because he had kept to himself, because he had disappeared. But now he had made too much noise. They weren't going to kill him outright. They were going to force him into the ground. Unless he got to them first. Link moved fast. He ditched the burner phone, wiped his laptop clean, and burned every remaining connection he had. If the CIA wanted to play this game, he was going to remind them who he used to be. He drove through the night, heading east, crossing state lines, never staying in one place long enough to leave a trail. By the time the agency realized what he was doing, it would be too late. They thought they had all the power. But Link had been trained to hunt ghosts. And now he was going to become one last time. By the time he reached Washington, D.C., he had everything he needed. Blueprints, security codes, names. The people pulling the strings weren't faceless. They had addresses. They had weaknesses. And Link? He was done playing by the rules. He walked through the city like he belonged there, blending into the crowds. No one looked at him twice. No one knew they were being watched. And then, at exactly 2:13 a.m., he made his move. He slipped into the secured CIA annex without a sound. The cameras didn't catch him. The security guards never saw him pass. And when he reached the office of Director Charles Monroe, the man behind the message, he was already waiting. Director Monroe was in his late 50s, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who had never lost a war he couldn't control. Until now. He sat behind his desk, his hands folded neatly, watching Link step into the room like he had been expecting him. Calloway. His voice was calm. Too calm. Link didn't respond. He locked the door behind him. Monroe exhaled slowly. I warned you. Link stepped forward, placing his gun on the desk between them. You threatened my son. Monroe didn't blink. We could have killed you. But we didn't. Do you know why? Link tilted his head. Because we don't need you dead, Calloway? Link's eyes narrowed. We need you back. Silence. Monroe leaned forward. We tried to make you disappear. We let you go because you earned it. But things have changed. The people you took out? They were dangerous. But there are bigger threats out there now. Threats that no one else can handle. Link didn't move. You're not done, Calloway. You think you are, but you're not. You don't get to just walk away from this life. Link clenched his jaw. I already did. Monroe's smirk returned. No, Calloway. You just took a break. But now, it's time to come home. Link's pulse slowed. This wasn't an offer. It was an order. He had spent years trying to erase himself, trying to disappear. But now, the one organization he had tried to escape wanted him back. And the worst part? They knew exactly how to pull him in. Because if he didn't take the deal, they would never stop watching Gabriel. Link's fingers curled into fists. This wasn't a choice. This was a trap. And Link and Calloway had just walked straight into it. Link stood in the dimly lit office, the weight of Monroe's words sinking in. "We need you back." The words echoed in his head like a death sentence. He had spent years erasing himself, disappearing into the wind. He had burned every bridge, made sure no one could track him. And yet here he was. The CIA had found him. Not because they wanted to kill him, but because they wanted him to work for them again. Monroe leaned back in his chair, eyes sharp as a blade. "We could have sent a kill team after you, Calloway. We could have made you vanish for real. But we didn't." Link didn't respond. "You want to know why?" Monroe continued, his voice calm, controlled. "Because we both know that you're too damn useful to be dead." Link clenched his jaw. "I'm done." His voice was flat. Monroe smirked. "No, you're not. You think you are, but you're not. And you know it." Link remained still. "Let me make this simple," Monroe said, leaning forward. "You walk out of this room, we let you go. You disappear again. But know this, Gabriel won't stay safe forever." Link's blood ran cold. "Is that a threat?" he asked, voice low. Monroe's smirk widened. "It's a fact. You put a target on your back, Calloway. There are people out there who still want you dead. And when they can't find you, they'll find your son instead." Link's fingers curled into fists. "But," Monroe continued, "there's another option. You come back. One job. One mission. You do this and we wipe everything. You'll be free. For good." Link exhaled slowly. This wasn't a choice. This was blackmail. And they knew exactly how to push him. "What's the mission?" Link asked. Monroe smiled. They had one. Link sat in a government-issued black SUV, staring at the file in his hands. One mission. One last job. Then they would erase everything. Or so they said. The target was a high-level operative who had gone rogue. Someone who had worked deep in the intelligence community, someone who had betrayed their country. Someone who had to disappear permanently. Link flipped the file open. And then his entire body went still. Tori Calloway. His wife. His betrayer. His final mission. Link's pulse slowed. His breath came steady. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. "She's been working with foreign operatives," Monroe said from the driver's seat, watching him carefully. "She didn't just sell your information, Calloway. She sold everyone's. We should have taken her out weeks ago, but we needed you to finish what you started." Link closed the file. "Where is she?" Monroe smirked. "Paris." Link looked out the window, his jaw tight. One last mission. One final kill. Then he would be free. For good. The streets of Paris were alive with energy, tourists filling the sidewalks, couples strolling hand in hand, the scent of fresh bread and espresso lingering in the air. But Link wasn't here to enjoy the view. He was here to end this. Tori was staying in a luxury hotel under a fake name, living like she hadn't betrayed everyone around her. Link stood across the street watching the windows. She had no idea he was coming. He moved like a shadow, slipping through the lobby, bypassing security like he had done it 1,000 times before. Because he had. When he reached the penthouse floor, he pulled his silencer from his jacket, securing it onto his weapon. The end was near. He stepped inside. Tori was sitting on the balcony, sipping wine, completely unaware. Link exhaled. One shot. One bullet. But then she turned. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. Link. For the first time in years he saw fear in her eyes. What are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice shaking. Link stepped forward, gun at his side. "You already know." Tori's lips parted. "Please." Link tilted his head. "Please what? Please don't do this. I made mistakes, but I didn't deserve this." Link studied her, his grip tightening on the gun. She deserved this. Every bit of it. And yet, he exhaled. "You don't get to decide what you deserve, Tori." His voice was cold. Tori's hands shook. "I know I ruined everything. But if you kill me, you're no better than the people who sent you." Link's finger hovered over the trigger. She wasn't wrong. But she wasn't right either. He lowered the gun. You're already dead, Tori. His voice was steady. You just don't know it yet. He turned and walked away. Because the truth was, the world would take care of her for him. And this time, he wasn't looking back. Link walked through the dimly lit streets of Paris, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket, his mind sharper than ever. The weight of the gun still pressed against his hip, but he hadn't needed to use it. He had let Tori live. Not out of mercy. Not out of love. But because death was too easy for someone like her. She had sold secrets to dangerous men. She had made enemies on every continent. And now, she had to live every second of her life knowing that one day one of them would come for her. That was her punishment. And Lincoln Calloway had washed his hands of her forever. He pulled out his burner phone, dialing Monroe's number. The director answered immediately. Is it done? Monroe asked. Link exhaled. It's handled. A beat of silence. Handled. Monroe repeated. She's dead to the world, Link said flatly. That's all that matters. Monroe's sigh was almost amused. You let her live. Link didn't confirm or deny it. Our deal's done, Monroe. You got what you wanted. Now I want my end of it. Monroe chuckled. You really think it's that simple? Link's grip on the phone tightened. We agreed. One job and I'm out. And you are, Monroe said smoothly. But let's be honest, Calloway. You're not the kind of man who just fades into the background. You don't get a normal life. You don't get to retire. I do now. Do you? Monroe's voice was quiet. Dangerous. Link stayed silent. Because from where I'm sitting? Monroe continued. You just became the most valuable man in the world. And that means someone, somewhere is always going to come looking for you. Link clenched his jaw. So you have a choice, Monroe said. You can keep running. Keep hiding. Keep pretending you're free. Or you can accept what you are. And what's that? Monroe chuckled. The last real ghost. Click. The line went dead. Link stood there staring at the phone, his pulse steady. The message was clear. They weren't letting him go. Not really. And that meant he had one last move to make. Link had spent his entire life looking over his shoulder. But not anymore. If the CIA thought they could keep him in their pocket, keep him in their control, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. He left Paris within the hour. Burned the last of his contacts. Ditched his phone, his ID, every trace of who he was. By the time the agency realized what he had done, he would already be gone. He flew across the ocean, moving through safe houses, switching identities. And then, finally, he reached the one place no one would ever look for him. A quiet town in South America. A small house overlooking the mountains. No cameras. No satellites. Nothing but silence. For the first time in years, Link wasn't being watched. He stood at the edge of the property, staring out at the horizon. And then he made the hardest decision of his life. He pulled out his last phone, the one with a number he swore he'd never call. Gabriel's new guardian. He pressed dial. The woman answered softly. You know this can't be a habit, Link? I know. He's safe. Link exhaled. That's all that mattered. Does he ask about me? A long pause. Sometimes. Link closed his eyes. Tell him I love him. I already do. Click. Link let out a slow breath, tucking the phone away. This was his life now. A ghost in the system. A man who didn't exist. But Gabriel was safe. And that meant he had won. For the first time in his life. He was finally free. Months passed. Link stayed in the shadows, moving when he needed to, watching the world from a distance. The agency had stopped looking. The enemies he had made were either dead or too afraid to chase him. For the first time in a long time, there was no war left to fight. One evening he sat on the porch of his house, a cold beer in hand, staring at the stars. And he thought about all the things he had lost. His wife. His career. His name. His son. But then he thought about what he had gained. A future. A life where no one controlled him. Where no one could take away what mattered to him. And for the first time in years he smiled. Because no matter what happened next, Lincoln Calloway had beaten the game. Before we close this chapter, let me ask you something. Did you think Link made the right choice? Would you have taken the deal? Or would you have disappeared just like he did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you would have done. And if you made it this far, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe. Because trust me, this isn't the last time you'll hear about Lincoln Calloway. And when he comes back, It'll be for the deadliest mission of his life. The end.